Welcome to the video analysis of the website Pedro, the Physiotherapy Evidence Database. This project is presented by Alexander McManus, Parker Hirsch, and Christian Verld. Pedro is created to give PTs and those researching relevant PT material the best available evidence of the effects of physical therapy interventions. The website goal is to give rapid access to bibliographic details and abstracts of randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and evidence-based clinical practice guidelines in physiotherapy. Due to the vast amount of medical information available from a variety of professions, Pedro helps fill in the gaps between comprehensive international index to the physical therapy literature and literature published in the field. Examples of these would be like Medline and PubMed. As you can see, PubMed is underneath the database of evidence in healthcare. This is easily found on the website, and you can click on PubMed. It's a hyperlink that will bring you right to the website, and it offers the sources and everything needed once there. For students such as we are in DPT school, this site is a great tool for us to use in citing our sources, gaining access to full text and abstracts to evidence-based physical therapy literature. The site has a research bar with multiple options and a unique rating scale on randomized clinical control trials according to the Pedro rating scale. These topics will be discussed later though by Xander and Parker. On the left-hand side, you can see a variety of options. I clicked under roles, and this brings you up to the promotion and facilitation of evidence-based physiotherapy. First, there is the access to evidence, little orange bubbles right there in the middle of the screen, and this really brings up their whole why the website was created, what its goal is to do, and who it's for, which I've already discussed. Next is the clinical appraisal, and this really is the conducting lectures and workshops to equip users with the skills to critically appraise clinical research, and they're also doing a top 5 clinical research trials that's all voted on by the users. And then finally, implementation, taking those clinically and evidence-based treatments and making sure they're effective and efficient, and that the information is actually being used in practice and not just read about, and is also being taught to students such as myself.
The Pedro database uses a scale conveniently known as the Pedro scale to rate each trial. The following criterions are what the database uses to evaluate each study. Criterion 1. This just means that the report should describe the source of the subjects and a list of criteria used to determine who's eligible for the study. Criterion 2. This just means that the report must state that allocation was random, and random can be anything such as dice rolling or even flipping a coin. Criterion 3. This means that the person who determined eligibility was unaware which group the subject would be assigned to. Criterion 4. The report must describe at least one measure of the severity of the condition being treated and at least one different key outcome measure at baseline. Criterion 5. Blinding just means that the person in question does not know which group the subject had been allocated to. Essentially, they are unaware of the overlying plan, and this also applies to Criterion 6, Criterion 7. For Criterion 8, this just means that the report explicitly states both the number of subjects initially allocated to groups and the number of subjects from whom key outcome measures were obtained. Criterion 9. An intention to treat analysis means that where subjects did not receive the treatment as allocated and where measures of outcomes were available, the analysis was performed as if the subjects received the treatment they were allocated to. Criterion 10. A between-group statistical comparison involves statistical comparison of one group with another. Depending on the design of the study, this may involve comparison of 2 or more treatments or comparison of treatment with a control condition. And last but not least, Criterion 11. A point measure is a measure of the size of the treatment effect. Measures of variability can be anything from standard deviations, standard errors, or confidence intervals, and these can all be displayed graphically. Points are awarded only when a criterion is clearly satisfied.
So now we're going to talk about how to use Pedro. Pedro has 3 search engines: simple, advanced, and consumer. For the healthcare professional like us, we will just stick to simple and advanced. Now here we have a simple results page. Pedro organizes its results based on methods that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. The first one being practice guidelines. Second, systematic reviews. And third is clinical trials. The clinical trials will be scored out of 10, as you can see just past the methods section. And that score is from the Pedro scale that Xander described earlier. Now, before we go into the types of searches, it's important to know some of the nuances that Pedro has embedded within it. Now, originally I searched just the term ankle injury and was given a ton of results, over 300 results. So I came back to narrow my search. Now, the two things that I want to point out are the asterisk and the word exercise. That asterisk will now include anything past the EXERCIS. So that includes anything like exercising or exercised. Next, I use quotation marks. This quotation mark will serve for Pedro to consider that term as a phrase. So only your yield results that use that whole entire term, like range of motion, not just range and not just motion. It will include all of it. So the first type of search in Pedro that we're going to look at is just a simple search. So the first step that you need to do is to think of your clinical question. For example, in adults with degeneration of the knee, does exercise therapy help with reducing pain? So now that we have our clinical question, it's important to now pick out some of the important terms to search. Something like knee, degeneration, and exercise therapy. Now you want to go in and you want to hit the search and then go through your results. And if you want to narrow that search, you can go back at any time by using the continue searching parentheses simple button. That will take you back to exactly where you were when you searched, and you can add more terms to it to make it even more narrowed down. So now we have the advanced search category of Pedro. This has 13 field categories. Some of these are going to be drop-down boxes and others are left as blanks. These blanks serve just like a simple search where you can fill in with words that you think are relevant to your search. The drop-down boxes have predetermined categories that you can choose from. It's important to note that you do not need to use all of these fields. The more you use, the more narrow your search will be, and it's important to realize this just when you're looking for research. So within your advanced search, there's an important category at the bottom. Now the default setting in Pedro is to use and. That means that when I'm searching two terms such as knee and ankle, it'll only yield results that include both of those terms in the article. Now you can change it to use or, which will then be a broader search and will include terms knee and ankle, whether they're used together or not.
That's all, folks.